Shedeur Sanders just led his first ever game-winning drive in the NFL, and Myles Garrett broke the single-season sack record in the same game. Let me say that again. In the same game where the Cleveland Browns finally won back-to-back games for the first time in 34 attempts, Shedeur Sanders had the ball with 1:30 left, down by a touchdown, and he delivered. No Harold Fannin, no David Njoku, no Jamari Thrash. Third and fourth string offensive line lost his center mid-game. And when Joe Burrow put the Bengals up with under 2 minutes left, Shedeur didn't fold. He made the two best throws of his season and put them in field goal range. Jerry Jeudy, of all people, caught the ball that set up the game winner. The same Jerry Jeudy that dropped a ball earlier in the game that could have been picked. The same Jerry Jeudy that's been inconsistent all year. This is the kind of stuff you can't write. And if you've been watching this season, you know this game means more than just a win. Let's talk about what actually happened here because there's layers to this. There's the Shedeur storyline, there's the Myles Garrett history-making moment, there's the Kevin Stefanski situation, there's the draft implications, and there's the fact that this one game, captured everything these two teams have been going through all season long. The struggles, the questions, the doubts. And somehow, in the middle of all that chaos, two massive things happened that people are going to remember for a long time. Shedeur Sanders went 11 for 22, 50% completion, 211 yards, 5 yards per attempt, no interceptions. He did lose a fumble. He did take sacks, and some of them were bad. But here's the thing that stood out if you actually watched the game. His internal clock seemed faster when it came to deciding whether to run or not. He wanted out of the pocket. He was looking to scramble more than usual. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but it felt like he was operating with a different mindset. He had 3 rushes for 26 yards, and at one point earlier in the season, he was the leading rusher on this team. Let that sink in. Your quarterback was leading the team in rushing. That tells you everything about the situation around him. Now, the first half wasn't great. Let's be real. I'm a Shedeur guy, and even I can admit the first half wasn't it. There were errant passes. There were moments where you could see him trying to figure things out. The timing was off. The rhythm wasn't there. And part of that is because Harold Fannin wasn't playing. David Njoku wasn't playing. Jamari Thrash wasn't playing. You had a tackle out. And then Luke Wattenberg, the center, went out early in the game too. So now you're on a third, fourth string offensive line, and you lose your center mid-game. That's the kind of situation that would break most young quarterbacks. But what happened when it mattered most? Joe Burrow, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, just led a perfect drive down the field. He's got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, one of the best receiver duos in football. He puts it in the end zone with 1:30 left. Game over, right? Browns lose again. Shedeur can't close. All the narratives write themselves. Except, that's not what happened. Shedeur came out and made probably the 2 best throws of his entire season. One to Cedric Tillman on the left side. Great anticipation, great placement. Then another throw right across the field. Low and away from the defender, perfect timing. And Jerry Jeudy, the same guy who gave up on a route earlier in the game, catches the ball and gets them into field goal range. And then there's Dustin Hopkins. Big Schmidt. If you remember back to week 2, Hopkins missed a kick against the Bengals, and the Cleveland media went wild because Shedeur Sanders was standing next to him on the sideline, consoling him. People were asking why Shedeur was doing that. Why is the rookie quarterback comforting the kicker? And Shedeur had this calm response where he said something like, "Schmidt's been through a lot. He deserves support. And he's going to do great things." After the Pittsburgh game, Shedeur said the same thing again. And now, Hopkins sinks the game-winning field goal. You can't write this stuff. The storylines are too perfect. So here's my question, and I want you to really think about this. Are wins a quarterback stat or not? Because people love to use wins when it fits their narrative, and they love to ignore wins when it doesn't. The Cleveland Browns hadn't won back-to-back games in 34 tries. That's the 5th most games without winning consecutive matchups in NFL history. And Shedeur Sanders just broke that streak. Technically, I could say Shedeur Sanders made history. He didn't set a record, but he did something that other quarterbacks in that same position, with less talent around them, with a worse offensive line, with fewer weapons, in higher stakes situations couldn't do. And he battled. That's the word I keep coming back to. He battled. The stats aren't going to impress anyone. 11 for 22 isn't going to make you jump out of your seat. But if you watched the game, if you saw the way he was running red options, the way he was scrambling for first downs, the way he stepped up in the pocket even when he fumbled, you saw a quarterback fighting. There was one play where they were backed up and he ran for like 15 yards just to get them breathing room. He wasn't playing scared. He wasn't playing passive. He was out there trying to win. And if you believe in Daniel Jones turning it around in a better situation, if you believe in Sam Darnold looking like a different player with better coaching and better weapons, then you have to believe in Shedeur Sanders. Because what he just did with 1:30 left, down by a touchdown, with no weapons and a busted offensive line, is exactly the kind of thing that proves he's got it. The 2-minute drill, the clutch throws, the composure under pressure. That's what separates good quarterbacks from guys who can't handle the moment. And Shedeur handled it. Now, if you're a Browns fan, you might be upset because this win knocked them out of the top 5 in the draft. The Raiders clinched the #1 overall pick. The Browns finished 5-12 and are now locked into a top 7 pick, but they're out of the top 5. So there's a conversation to be had about whether winning this game was actually good for the franchise long term. Do you want the better draft pick, or do you want to see your young quarterback develop confidence and learn how to win? That's a real question, and I don't think there's a clear answer. But let's talk about the other side of this game, because Myles Garrett just did something that's going to be talked about forever. 23 sacks. He completely shattered the single-season sack record that was tied between Michael Strahan and TJ Watt. And he did it in dominant fashion. This wasn't some gimmick sack. This wasn't some coverage sack where the quarterback held the ball too long. This was Myles Garrett in his wide 9 technique, perfect get-off, dipping his shoulder, and beating the left tackle clean. Joe Burrow didn't even have a chance. And the fact that it happened against the Bengals, against Joe Burrow, in a game that actually mattered, makes it even better. I said this months ago, and I got roasted for it. I looked into the camera and said, Myles Garrett is going to go down as the greatest Brown to ever play the game. People came at me with Joe Thomas. People came at me with Jim Brown. And I'm here to plant the flag again. Joe Thomas is a historic offensive lineman. Hall of Famer, no question. But Myles Garrett is doing things that no one else in the league can do. He's been a Gold Jacket lock for 3 seasons now. But this sack record cements his name among the all-time greats. Not just the greats of the greats. The people who are going to be talked about for as long as the NFL exists. Look at who he sacked this season. Joe Burrow multiple times, Lamar Jackson 4 times, Drake May 5 times in 1 game, Geno Smith 3 times, Caleb Williams, Cam Ward, Josh Allen, Jordan Love. He's been terrorizing the best quarterbacks in the league all season long, and the way he got the record-breaking sack was perfect. No gimmicks, no cheap coverage sack, just lining up, beating his man, and getting to the quarterback. That's pure dominance. And if you were watching the game, you could see Jim Schwartz was just letting Myles go get it. They lined him up at defensive tackle. They lined him up at linebacker. They moved him all over the formation. And with under 10 minutes left in the game, Schwartz basically said, "Just go get it, dog." And Myles did. He got the record with about 5 minutes left, and the celebration on the sideline was everything. His teammates were carrying him. Shelby Harris high-fived a ref, which could have been a penalty, but wasn't. The emotion was real. You could see what it meant to everyone on that team. Myles Garrett is Cleveland football. He's a grinder, he's a worker. He's the kind of player that represents what football is supposed to be about. Ohio has deep football roots, and Myles embodies all of that. The fact that he's doing this in a Browns uniform for a franchise that's had so many struggles makes it even more special. And the moment where he embraced his mom after breaking the record, that's the kind of stuff that makes sports matter. That's the human element that you can't fake. So now we've got two massive storylines coming out of this game. Shedeur Sanders leads his first game-winning drive. Myles Garrett breaks the single-season sack record. The Browns win back-to-back games for the first time in 34 tries. And all of this happens in the final game of the regular season with massive implications for the future. Let's talk about Kevin Stefanski because his future is one of the biggest questions heading into the offseason. After the game, he was asked about Myles Garrett's record-breaking moment, and he said, "You can't write a better script for that." The way he got it in a really meaningful moment of the game, and then it came in a win, and a great team win. So proud of those guys. And when he was asked about Shedeur and the offense, he said, "We were not perfect on offense by any stretch of the imagination, but we came through when we had to come through. Need to go on a drive there to get in field goal range. Made some plays. Just a bunch of fighters on that team." A bunch of fighters. That's the phrase that stands out. Because that's what this team has been all season. They've been fighting through injuries, fighting through bad luck, fighting through inconsistency. And in this game, they fought hard enough to win. But does that save Kevin Stefanski's job? Does this win give him another chance? Or is it just a feel-good moment before the inevitable changes happen? Because here's the reality. The Browns are 5-12. They're out of the top 5 in the draft. They've got major questions at quarterback moving forward. They've got an offensive line that's been decimated by injuries. They've got receivers who can't stay healthy. And they've got a head coach who's been on the hot seat for most of the season. Winning this game feels good in the moment, but does it actually change anything long-term? If you're the Browns front office, what do? Do you look at this game and say, "Okay, Shedeur showed us something. He can close games. He can handle pressure. Let's build around him and give Stefanski another year to see what he can do with a healthy roster"? Or do you look at the 5-12 record and say, "This isn't working. We need a fresh start. We need a new voice. We need to reset the entire culture"? I don't have the answer to that question, and I don't think anyone does right now. But what I do know is that this game gave us a glimpse of what Shedeur Sanders can be when everything clicks. And it also reminded us that Myles Garrett is a once-in-a-generation talent who's doing historic things in real time. Let's go back to Shedeur for a second because I want to address something that's been bothering me all season. There's this narrative that Shedeur can't handle pressure, that he folds in big moments, that he's not clutch. And I just watched him lead a game-winning drive with 1:30 left, down by a touchdown, with a depleted roster and a patchwork offensive line. So, where does that narrative come from? Part of it is the fumble earlier in the game. And yeah, the hand placement on that fumble wasn't great. But he was stepping up in the pocket trying to make a play. He wasn't running away from contact. He wasn't playing scared. He was trying to extend the play and give his guys a chance. That's the kind of mentality you want from your quarterback. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you can't coach that kind of competitiveness. And then there's the Jerry Jeudy situation. Earlier in the game, Shedeur threw a pass that Jerry Jeudy just gave up on. The ball was a little high, I'll admit that. But Jeudy stopped tracking it. He looked to the right, saw the ball was behind him, and just gave up. Didn't put his hands up, didn't try to make a play, just quit on the route. And then later in the game, Jeudy makes the catch that sets up the game winner. That's football. It's messy, it's inconsistent, but when it mattered most, Jeudy made the play, and Shedeur put the ball where it needed to be. Here's the thing about evaluating quarterbacks. You can't just look at the stats. You have to watch the tape. You have to see the context. You have to understand what's happening around them. And when you do that with Shedeur Sanders, what you see is a quarterback who's playing with limited resources, making the best of bad situations, and showing flashes of real talent. The read options he was running looked clean. The scrambles for first downs showed awareness and athleticism. The 2 throws on the final drive showed arm talent and decision-making. And the way he handled himself after the fumble, after the mistakes, after the rough stretches in the first half, showed mental toughness. He didn't let the bad moments snowball. He stayed focused. He kept fighting. And when his number was called in the biggest moment of the game, he delivered. Now, is he perfect? No. Is he a finished product? Absolutely not. But if you put him in a better situation, with better weapons, with a healthy offensive line, with a coaching staff that's committed to developing him, I think you're going to see massive growth. And this game is proof of that, because even in the worst possible circumstances, he found a way to win. Let's talk about the defense for a second, because they played a huge role in this game too. They had 2 touchdowns. A pick 6 by Deon Bush, which was hilarious because he was yelling at Myles Garrett to block for him as he was running it back. And then there was a fumble recovery for a touchdown. So there was a stretch of the game where Shedeur and the offense didn't even touch the field for like 10 minutes. The defense was carrying the load. And maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing, but it definitely took some pressure off the offense. And when the defense gives up a touchdown with 1:30 left, that's when you find out what your quarterback is made of. Because now there's no safety net. There's no room for error. You've got to go down the field and score, or the game is over. And Shedeur did exactly that. He didn't panic. He didn't force throws. He took what the defense gave him, made accurate throws, and trusted his guys to make plays. That's what good quarterbacks do. The fact that this all happened in the final game of the regular season makes it even more significant. Because now the Browns are heading into the offseason with so many questions, but also with some answers. They know Shedeur can handle the moment. They know Myles Garrett is still playing at an elite level. They know this team can win games when things click. But they also know the roster needs work. The coaching staff might need changes, and the future is uncertain. And that uncertainty is what makes this so interesting. Because if you're a Browns fan, you don't know what's coming next. Are they going to commit to Shedeur and build around him? Are they going to move on from Stefanski? Are they going to use their top 7 pick on offense or defense? There's so many directions this could go, and this win doesn't answer those questions. It just adds more layers to the conversation. What this game did do, though, is give Browns fans something to be proud of. Shedeur Sanders leading a game-winning drive in his rookie season. Myles Garrett breaking the single-season sack record. Winning back-to-back games for the first time in 34 tries. Those are moments that matter. Those are things you remember. And in a season full of frustration and disappointment, having a game like this to close things out means something. So where does this leave us? Shedeur Sanders proved he can close games. Myles Garrett proved he's one of the all-time greats. The Browns proved they can win when it matters. But there's still so much we don't know. What happens with Stefanski? What happens with the roster? What happens with the draft? What happens next season? And that's the uncomfortable part. Because this win feels good right now, but it doesn't solve the bigger problems. It doesn't fix the offensive line. It doesn't bring back the injured receivers. It doesn't answer the questions about leadership and culture. It's just one game. One really good game with 2 historic moments, but still just one game. The real test comes next. How does the organization respond? How do they build on this? Do they see this as a foundation to grow from, or do they see it as a fluke in a lost season? And most importantly, do they believe in Shedeur Sanders enough to give him the support he needs to develop into the quarterback everyone thinks he can be? Because if you watched this game, if you saw what he did with nothing around him, you have to believe there's something there. The arm talent is real. The composure is real. The competitive fire is real. Now it's about putting him in a position to succeed. And that's on the front office. That's on the coaching staff. That's on the organization to figure out. Myles Garrett's legacy is secure. He's going down as one of the greatest defensive players ever. But Shedeur's legacy is still being written. And games like this, moments like this, are the building blocks. This is where you start to see what a player is made of. And what we saw from Shedeur Sanders in this game is a fighter, a competitor, a quarterback who refuses to quit. So what's next? We don't know, and maybe that's okay. Maybe the uncertainty is part of the story. Maybe the questions are what make this interesting. All we know for sure is that Shedeur Sanders led a game-winning drive, Myles Garrett made history, and the Cleveland Browns gave their fans one last reason to believe before heading into an off-season full of change.